Farmers who were planting in dust just days ago now experience flooding, leaving us guessing what's next. We'll have your forecast, and growers face pressure to use less nitrogen. Think you can do better? Here's your chance through TAPS. Plus, how homegrown fuels affect your wallet. And U.S. senators discuss their priorities as the Farm Bill may be targeted for spending cuts. It's time to grow. From the White House to Nebraska, a key ally on farm policy visits the Cornhusker State.
So this remote is primarily to
autonomous tractors and high-tech imaging. U.S. senators see the future of agriculture.
We can grow more, get better yields with less inputs.
But weather can wipe out a crop in a hurry, and farmers make it clear Congress needs to maintain the safety nets.
Every farmer, every ag group, association, that's what we hear. The need to maintain that very strong crop insurance program.
We don't have, whether it be environmental or climate-related issues, be tied to crop insurance. All producers need to be able to have access to crop insurance regardless of those practices.
But while it's called the Farm Bill, it may be more appropriate to call it the Food and Farm Bill. Nutrition programs like SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, account for 3/4 of spending. Crop insurance, commodities, and conservation each get a much smaller slice. But that broad array of programs brings bipartisan support. And even with a divided Congress, the ranking member of the Senate Ag Committee says it's an area where Republicans agree with President Biden.
He gets it. So I'm really excited that we've got the prospect to go forward and come up with a farm bill that our farmers can be excited about.
Senator John Bozeman visits Nebraska hours after talks at the White House.
You have the administration, that's behind 100%.
But Republicans are looking to cut spending as they push for a deal on the debt ceiling. That could impact programs like SNAP. Senators say they haven't gotten specific.
We need to kind of figure out our top lines on what we've got to spend and things like that.
There's pressure to get a farm bill passed, bringing certainty for consumers and farmers.
To get it done before it runs out the end of September. Certainly we need to get it done this year because next year you get into presidential politics.
How deep any cuts are remains to be seen, and the impact both on consumers and farmers. Some plants across our state may look tame, but could be harming livestock and wildlife habitat. NTV's Rochelle Ventura has more on the push to fight noxious weeds.
The state of Nebraska has 12 different noxious weeds that need to be regulated due to the destruction and harm they can cause to our lands.
Yellow star thistle, salt cedar, leafy spurge.
According to the Department of Agriculture, these weeds not only destroy our native habitats, but can ultimately harm the animals living there.
They can take over your land, definitely reduce the carrying capacity of the land, and so less cows can graze that land.
They'll root out, they'll take over a pasture like leafy spurge. Cows don't like it, they'll eat around it. Once that takes over, then there's not a whole lot of grass for livestock to eat.
Besides impacting pasture productivity, these invasive weeds can also take a toll on farmers and ranchers' wallets.
So if you have a really bad infestation, it's going to cost you quite a bit of money to get rid of it.
They say everything depends on the type of noxious weed on the land and if the landowner is on top of the issue.
We always say early detection, rapid response. When the spot is little, the cost to control it is minimal compared to spraying hundreds and hundreds of acres.
If you just let it go, then you're sitting there spraying year after year after year, spending anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000.
This is what leafy spurge looks like in a field situation.
Especially if you're dealing with leafy spurge. Schultz and Stubbs said is one of the most common noxious weeds in Nebraska pastures.
It's got a root system that goes 20 to 50 foot deep, And so the cost of the herbicide is going to be a little bit higher, and so you could be looking at $25 to $35 an acre for cost of herbicide on that particular weed.
Schultz and Stubbs say farmers spending a lot of money to get rid of these weeds can impact consumers as well.
These chemicals are not your 2,4-Ds or your dicambas. They're designed for these plants, so they cost a little bit more than your normal, just general weed spray.
If the infestation gets so bad in particular areas, there will be less cattle grazing those areas to go to market.
To learn more about the state's noxious weeds and the work the local weed control departments do, visit Nebraska.tv.
A fire burning in the Nebraska National Forest is now contained. It's estimated the Natick fire burned 1,849 acres. The fire's cause has not been determined, and an investigator continues to collect findings. It's Renewable Fuels Month in Nebraska, and as Marcel Ventura reports, some people are revved up.
Experts say the month of May usually marks the beginning of the summer driving season, making it an ideal time to fuel up on cost-saving and clean biofuels. Whether you're talking about ethanol or soybean biodiesel, many people say these renewable fuels are great options to help clean up our air.
Ethanol, on average, is about 43% cleaner than regular gasoline. So you're almost slicing your emissions in half just by choosing this renewable fuel. And renewable diesel and biodiesel, they actually can reduce emissions by up to 86% when compared to conventional diesel.
A lot of the talk is going to EVs, electric vehicles, and doing that switch, but we don't need to. We have biodiesel and we have ethanol that will clean up the environment. It's clean burning fuel. And we have it available. Let's use it.
Sadov says that using biodiesel can reduce greenhouse gases by 75%. He says the demand for bio and renewable diesel is rapidly increasing.
And that's partly because of these climate change policies that some states have adopted, especially in California and New York. So they're wanting to use renewable diesel and biodiesel because it's better for the environment. It's a cleaner burning fuel.
When it comes to the ethanol industry, one of their challenges now is to find ways to get permission to offer E15 beyond the summer.
The governor also has done different kinds of activities, such as submitting a letter to the EPA to ensure that we have year-round E15 access starting in 2024.
Wagner said the renewable fuels industry supports over 6,000 full-time positions in the state.
And those actually average salaries of over $70,000 per year, which is a really fantastic starting point for the citizens of Nebraska.
And they say everyday Nebraskans can save more at the pump when using renewable fuels.
When you talk about us utilizing ethanol at the pump and using even just a 10% blend instead of a blend with zero ethanol in it, really the savings come down to around anywhere between $25 and $40 million per month for Nebraskans.
We want to raise awareness for soy biodiesel. If they can find it in the pump in their local retailers, and go ahead and fill up with it.
During Renewable Fuels Month, Fuel by Nebraska and the Nebraska Soybean Board will have giveaways, fuel promotions, and more. For all the details, visit Nebraska.tv.
I picked my hybrid, now that seed goes in the ground. Coming up, what we've learned through the TAPS program. Up next, want to be a leader? Nebraska Lead needs you.
It's sponsored by Acres Equipment, solutions for every field. Acres has what you need to get the job done.
Welcome back. The Nebraska LEAD program has been developing leaders in agriculture for over 4 decades now, and Dr. Terry Haney is joining us, the director of the program. It's getting back in the swing of things after COVID.
We are, things are a little more normal each day, and things happened really fast to get us back kind of to more normal. So yeah, we're excited.
So let's talk about some of the opportunities for the first time in a few years, these LEAD program participants have been able to go on international trips.
Absolutely. Our international seminar to Costa Rica, Colombia, and Panama, LEAD 40 was able to do that. Nice weather there. We came back to a snowstorm in Omaha when we landed, but you know, we did it. And so it was exciting to be able to do that. LEAD 41 finished up their first year in the Panhandle with a little snowstorm, but you know, their national seminar was more normal-like compared to the LEAD 40s when they were there in February of 22. So now, Sarah, that means we're recruiting for LEAD 42.
Awesome. So what are some of the, so what are some of the benefits, and you know, why are we going internationally? Why are we going nationally?
Well, we don't probably have enough time to talk about all those things, but what it really does is the global awareness, obviously, but even the national significance of meeting with business leaders, policymakers across our country that help shape ag policy is so important to these younger people that are becoming our future leaders. And so the opportunities for them to re-energize, sharpen their saw, develop a professional and personal network that's going to benefit them and the people that they're leading into the future.
These are farmers, insurance adjusters, kind of all kinds of people in the industry. What do you say to the person who's sitting there going, this isn't for me?
Well, they're going to say, I'm just too busy. I have a young family. I have kids in junior high. I have kids in high school. You know, you have to take time. It goes so quickly, and I've never had anyone tell me after they graduated that they tell me they want to do it again. And so take the time and do it. You know, we need the leaders in agriculture, and so for your viewers out there, they need to give us a call. Our application deadline is June 15th. Our phone number, 402-472-6810. Check us out on the web. Type in Nebraska LEAD Program, LEAD all in capital letters, L-E-A-D. Send us an email, leadprogram@unl.edu, but the application deadline is June 15th. Sarah, chances are they know someone in their community that's been through this program. There's a wealth of knowledge there to draw from, but they need to get going right now.
Yeah, you're right. If you can get a farmer to come out during planting, to get out of the field during planting season and still say it's worth it, I say you probably have something good going on.
I think we do, but you know, we try to tailor the program. We give them time off from early April to mid-September, late September. So it does really work well for a row crop producer. And so, you know, but we want all kinds of producers, all kinds of business people to be in this program. It's a statewide program from Scottsbluff to Omaha.
We've talked about the personal impact. How does that impact the industry as a whole here in Nebraska?
Well, I look at the positions that our LEAD fellows have taken over the last 42 years, and it's amazing. The state senators that have come out of this program, a speaker of the legislature, a current United States senator, but not just those political positions, but the board members for our commodity boards, our grower associations, but at the local level, they get involved with, as a county commissioner on school boards, hospital boards, their church councils, whatever it may be, economic development, community development. It's so important that they go back to their communities, large or small, rural or urban, and they make them a better place to live, work, and play. So that's what it's all about.
All right, a bunch of passionate people you can speak with about this. Get registered. It's coming up, and we'll have more information on our website, nebraska.tv. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Will this stormy pattern continue? Our Grow Weather Outlook is next.
NTV's Grow Weather is sponsored by Acres Equipment, solutions for every field. Acres has what you need to get the job done.
We'll start off this week's Drought Monitor with a check of the regional drought monitor. You can see a lot of the Central Plains dealing with some sort of drought condition. As of this week, one thing to keep in mind, it takes into account conditions through 8 a.m. Tuesday morning, so it doesn't account for any rain that we got past 8 a.m. Tuesday morning. We'll likely see some bigger changes to our drought monitor as we look ahead toward next week. But there were some improvements across parts of Nebraska, mainly parts of central Nebraska, some improvements in portions of that area, but then also parts of southern Nebraska and northern Kansas. Some areas had worsening conditions when it comes to the drought conditions. So we still have some exceptional drought highlighted in that maroon shading from South Sioux City area down toward Norfolk as well as Columbus. Then southwest Nebraska down in northwest Kansas, some areas in that too. The red is extreme drought that's ongoing, severe drought highlighted in orange, moderate drought in the tan shading, and then outlining that abnormally dry conditions highlighted in the yellow. So let's look ahead for May. So in terms of May temperatures, how they average out, the Central Plains, we are looking at equal chances, no strong signals for above or below average, but you can see a wide area across the south stretching farther to the north toward the Great Lakes, likely to see those temperatures averaging out below normal. That includes portions of the west coast too. They are going to see that as well, while portions of the northwest likely to see the opposite, above normal temperatures when you average out the entire month of May in those numbers. That includes Florida too, portions of New England states as well. Now, as we look ahead towards precipitation, below average precipitation forecast from the northern plains down to parts of Nebraska, and then down in parts of Kansas too. This is for the entire month of May, and then that stretches off to our east as well. While the southern plains, Texas, and then parts of the south, looking at that possibility for above average precipitation. Parts of the west coast and other parts of the western part of the U.S. looking at the possibility for above average precipitation when you factor in those May numbers. Now for May, June, July, so farther out, we are looking at above average temperatures likely from the east coast stretching toward the south, parts of Kansas too, and then a small area of the northwest likely to see that too. Now for May, June, July precipitation, above average precipitation forecast for parts of the south from Florida and then a little bit farther to the north parts of the Midwest too. Northwest part of the U.S. likely to see below average precipitation, and parts of the southwest likely to see that too in the coming months. Anywhere not shaded, equal chances. So that includes a lot of Nebraska. There's a small sliver of southeast Nebraska and eastern Kansas, but a lot of Nebraska and northern Kansas looking at equal chances for the next 3 months. Let's talk about our almanac for this week. 71 our normal high, normal low right around 48. Week ahead average high above that, right around 76. Week ahead average low right around 50. And then our proverb for this week, May thunderstorms in May, and the farmer sings hey hey. That's a check of your Grow weather forecast. We'll have another update coming up next week.
Whether you're on the planter or you've been branding, we want to see your pictures. Go to our website, Nebraska.tv, and chime in. For about 30 years, Nebraska has seen an average of 29 tornadoes a year, a drop last year to 26. Mike Moritz with the National Weather Service says one reason the state had fewer was drought. He says sometimes it's easy to determine something is a tornado because of videos and pictures, but storms at night and in rural areas are more difficult. They look at radar and reports from storm spotters.
Once we're on the damage survey, we look primarily at the damage that occurred. And the number one reason we're trying to do that is to obviously determine what the path is, how long the path is, how wide the path is at its widest mark, and then try to estimate the wind speed. We don't know the wind speed inside the tornado, but when we look at the damage, we try to estimate this is the type of wind speed the damage could do. It is not a true measurement of wind. It is a combination of information that makes it an imperfect science, but still a worthy one to pursue.
I'm usually behind the camera watching planting season, but now I choose the hybrid and the nitrogen applications. Find out what we've learned next.
Ag Innovations is sponsored by Acres Equipment, solutions for every field. Acres has what you need to get the job done.
Water is the lifeblood of Nebraska agriculture, and there's a push to manage water and nitrogen more efficiently. High nitrate levels pose health risks. The Platte River Basin lights up when you look at a map. It shows where nitrate concentrations are high, and conservation through competition is what UNL TAPS is all about. I'm no farmer, but I went through the catalog and picked out a hybrid that's going in the ground. Potential seeds of change. $285 a bag, 33,000 seeds an acre. Nebraska farmers sink billions in the soil. Planting corn is an investment. Big potential, big risk.
Ready to roll.
I usually stay behind the camera, but this season I'm making the decisions a farmer would.
What hybrid to plant, what seeding rate to plant out, how much nitrogen to put on pre-plant.
Play it just right, and that's money in the farmer's pockets.
If somebody's really good at keeping their cost of production low but have those high bushels and do a really good job of marketing, they can make a couple $100 extra per acre.
It can be tempting to use more water and fertilizer, but at some point, the law of diminishing returns kicks in. These Husker scientists are trying to find that sweet spot.
And then we can even dial it in a little bit more and start to think of how do we start to develop appropriate recommendations to better guide in-season management.
It's not just economic. Some areas see rising nitrate levels and declining groundwater.
So we need to figure out how to be very efficient with that irrigation applications. And of course, nitrates in the drinking water, you know, we've seen those increase from the eastern end of the state moving west. So we need to figure out how to put on less nitrogen and still get those top bushels.
That's the mission of TAPS, a university project where teams compete to see who can be the most efficient using the same field. Competitors come from several states, even internationally, including farmers, high school kids, government regulators, and a journalist.
I'm able to collaborate with a lot of colleagues outside of just my discipline.
Vacuums and gloves show they're not messing around as they aim for precision, collecting data and trying to make sense of it.
Sometimes it kind of leaves you scratching your head of like, well, that person only put on this much water, this much nitrogen. Why did they get the yield they got?
Some have taken what they've learned back to their own farms.
Kind of an eye-opening experience for the participants.
To cap it off, they've created a network of industry professionals rooted in a common desire to improve efficiency, sustainability, and profitability.
That's the story to tell for me. You know, we have some producers that are very efficient and still produce those bushels and be very profitable.
The TAPS program now being replicated in other states. Next week, we'll meet our Farm Youth of the Month, so join us as we see how agriculture makes Nebraska grow.
NTV's Grow is brought to you by Aurora Cooperative. Tougher together, Aurora and you.